Hi everyone, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and I'm your host BMR. And as always, I'm joined by the bearded one, Tex. If this is your first time here, please subscribe on YouTube to Tex's Front Porch. Give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to hit the alert bell. You can find us on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, and on Facebook at Texas Front Porch. You can also reach us by email at paracryptidencounters@gmail.com or by text at 972-559-0988. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to Bigfoot Michigan Rob. If you enjoy our content and would like to support us, the Super Chat is always open, or you can Venmo us at @ @text6717. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hey, we made it.
Oh, Tex, we did make it. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good. Get up this over here where everybody can hear me good.
You know, that's live radio. We had to make a couple adjustments, and I got to make an adjustment here, but it's all sounding good. Tex, man, how's your day started?
You know what? Not bad. Gonna go over and when we get done here, I gotta go over and grab some fence panels from Home Depot and work on that, and then do a little work on the new studio. And so, yeah.
You know, Tex, it's funny you mentioned panels, because my fence panels in my backyard blew down. I don't have fence posts sunk in. I put up the wood ones, but they've been lasted about 10 years. And boy, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds rush through, and I had to take the what do you call it? The those ties, those nylon ties, and strap them up. But hey, you know what? It's a nice look. I'm gonna have to repair that this summer. And yeah, you know, March is always high winds in Michigan. I expect the same in Texas. And before we get started, Tex, I got to pay the bills real quick for everybody listening on Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio. You'll get the first 50 minutes of the show. Then come on over to YouTube, subscribe to Texas Front Porch or Bigfoot Michigan Rob, where you can pick up the entirety of the show. And on Mondays, Texas Front Porch, 6:30 Central with Tex and Jason. Wednesday, Jason Mclean questions everything at 9 Central. Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Thursdays, noon Central. And our new show this Friday with the lovely and talented Jessica Jones. Remote viewing with Jessica Jones. We'll be discussing DLF Pass tomorrow and what her findings are. Should be a great show. With that being said, Tex, we've got a guy backstage, another guy from the Bronx, another guy from New York. A friend of Sir Brian Bowden, who was on 3 weeks ago. Tex, if you want to bring him up, I'd like to welcome Al Santariga to the show. Welcome, Al.
How you doing, fellas? Thank
you. Man, I'm going to apologize right now for butchering your last name the other day.
That's okay. No one gets it right. Very few people.
Did I say it right, Al?
You said it right. You said it right.
You know, I said it right. And I got to tell you something, man. Your name inspires me, because I'm going to tell you right now. I love saying the name, and after today's show, I'm going to do my brunch. I'm going to go downtown Detroit. I'm going to go to one of the multicultural establishments. I'm going to sit in. I'm going to get the menu, and I'm going to order the biggest sangria they've got on the menu. That's how much you inspire me today, my brother. Welcome once again to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I tend to drink a lot of sangria, too, when I go out to eat.
Awesome. So let's get this thing rolling. Al, for those that don't know about you, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how you get involved in this strange phenomenon that we call UFOs, cryptids, and other strange highness.
Brief bio. My mom was psychic, for lack of a better definition. She always knew when somebody died. Everybody always came to her first. It didn't matter if she was in Italy or down in Florida or in New York. They would always go to her first. My father would make her sleep in a separate room because she would talk all night to people. My brother's a parapsychologist and worked with Hans Holzer's right-hand man, and worked with Hans Holzer's psychic. So it was natural for me. I always had books in the house, all kinds of stuff. You know, I was that kid in grade school who went every Friday, went to the library. I got the Loch Ness Monster, the Abominable Snowman book, you know what I mean? UFOs, ghosts. Right. That was me. I always had one of those books. And, you know, so it was just natural for me. My sister is like sensitive. I get gut feelings. I don't claim to be psychic by any stretch of the imagination, but I get gut feelings. I've always had them my whole life. And I noticed the longer you do this stuff, the more sensitive you get to different energies. I've gotten so much more sensitive over the years. And last year I had an ascension that I thought was a dream. That's a whole story. That's a whole nother show. But, you know, so I started the Bronxville Paranormal Society as a ghost hunting group. And out of that, because none of the paranormal groups get along, whenever we went to symposiums, you know, the ghost hunters wanted to know why the cryptid guys were there, and the cryptid guys wanted to know why the UFO people are there. So what we did was we took the Bronxville Paranormal Society and we broke it up into a bunch of different little groups. And now we're the New York State UFO Project, and we're the New York State Sasquatch organization, and we're the New York North American Dogman Project, New York State chapter. So we cover a whole bunch of different things. It just came natural to me. I mean, I had my first UFO sighting at 10. I had my first Bigfoot sighting at 12. I had my first ghost sighting at 5. It was actually my grandmother who passed, came back, you know. So
no big surprise there, huh?
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's just been my life. I didn't realize that my life was paranormal. I thought it was normal until I got like a teenager and I started telling all my friends, and they're like, "Dude, that's not normal," you know. Yeah, no. So I mean, I've had an interesting life. I've seen a lot of different things, experienced a lot of different things, and you know, and I just love being out on the field investigating, you know, whether it's squatching, ghost hunting, which is a term I hate, or, you know, sky watching, doing UFO stuff, trying to CE5s, trying to bring them in. I just love doing all of that stuff. And we've been very successful in everything we do, you know. And I don't know if that's a combination of mine and Brian's energy or just who we are, because things just come towards us, are attracted to us for one reason or run away from us, and we can feel it, you know, that, you know, something is dodging us when we're out in an investigation, you know. So it's just who I am.
Yeah. And you had made mention you had your earliest encounter at 5 years old. You know, me personally, I had mine 4 years ago. You know, so is that what really set you on the path to what you're doing today, Al?
You know what? I don't know if that's actually what set me on the path. You know, I'll tell you what really set me off. I mean, the UFO stuff at 10 years old freaked me out, you know, and the Bigfoot down in Florida, the skunk ape thing that I had when I was 12 years old, scared the hell out of me for like 2 years. I was like, afraid to sleep at night and stuff like that, you know. But in 2012, I had a like 6 months of every time I left the house. Like, I leave in the morning, it's 4:30 in the morning to go to work. I come home, it's late at night. It's always dark. So it's always dark when I'm commuting. And I got to commute 60 miles each way back and forth. And when 2012, I started seeing UFOs every single day. Every day I see one on the way to work. I see one and I'm not that guy that looks in the sky and thinks everything's a UFO. You know what I mean? I know there's tons of drones and stuff going out there, you know, out in the skies between the government and the state police and all that other stuff. But I get a vibe. If I get a vibe that says, "Look at this. This is important," then I look at it. You know, if I don't get a vibe, I just keep going. And I thought I was losing my mind. I called my brother who lives in Michigan, and he's a parapsychologist. And I said, "Frank, I think I'm losing my mind," you know? And he's like, "No, you need to be around like-minded people and talk about it." So I found this group. It was called the UFO Roundtable. And I got to talk about all of my sightings and everything, and I got to meet all these different people from all aspects of life, and that's where I met Brian, and it just like released something from me, and then my brother said, I was going out. He worked in a little town in Bronxville, New York. It's a little rich town. All rich people live there, right? And I was going out with a bunch of guys that worked at the post office, and I was going out with a bunch of guys investigating, doing all kinds of stuff. And up here in the Northeast, we have these ancient stone chambers that nobody knows who built. And we were up on this place called Ninna Mountain. It's a Native American mountain. I think it was sacred ground for the Native Americans. And we were up on one of these mountains and one of these chambers doing an investigation. And a group of people walked by and they said, "Oh, wow, you guys, a paranormal team." And I said, "Yeah, we're the Bronxville Paranormal Society." It just came out because everybody who was there worked in Bronxville. And it just stuck. And my brother said, instead of going out with guys from work who are not taking it serious, you should put a team together and get serious about it. So I did. And that's where I met Brian and a bunch of other people. And it just took off from there, and that's when I really got rocking and rolling with everything, But I mean, my whole life, from 5 years old to now has been a paranormal journey. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
Awesome. Text, you're on mute, buddy.
I had people coming in the house making noise, so I muted myself. Sorry, guys. You're gonna really dig. We got an account coming up that I haven't really talked about yet, but I got an encounter told to me, I guess a week and a half ago, about a white dogman.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so you don't hear those very often. So I'm looking forward to getting that one out there. But you said you had your first Bigfoot sighting at 12 down in Florida.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh man. Every summer my father would ship me and my cousin Anthony down to Florida to go live with my sister for the summer. It was like our summer camp. And my brother-in-law had a beautiful home down in Davie, Florida. It was on the outskirts of Fort Lauderdale. It was a real cowboy town. The only thing they had was the rodeo on the 4th of July. That was the biggest thing that ever happened there. And this one summer we were down there, and my sister had moved around in this development that they were building, and she had a house in the beginning of it, and then she built a bigger one in the back, and had a swimming pool and everything. And my brother-in-law's an ex-Marine guy, right? So he put us to work every day. Me and my cousin, we went to work. We had a list of shit we had to get done, and we tried to get it all done before noon, because after noon it got really hot down in South Florida, So we would knock out with the list for the day, and then we would go out we knew all the guys in the neighborhood because we had been down there year after year, and we all had dirt bikes, and we go dirt bike riding out in the swamp. And one of the kids who hung out with us, his father had a horse ranch, and we take people out on the ranch and the swamp. Sometimes we as the guides, and we worked on the dude's ranch shoveling shit to make a few extra dollars so we could buy some beer and go into the woods and have a bonfire. You know what I mean? So we were down there. It was the summer '74. And it was that summer there was a lot of fires in the Everglades that summer. So it was driving a lot of the animals that were in the Everglades inland. And we were seeing news reports every day on TV about skunk ape sightings. Sheriff's seen it, the state police seen it, and they were all investigating and every single day there was another thing about it. And every single day in the newspaper there was another thing about it. So, my sister, me and my cousin Anthony were hanging out. He was 15. I was 12. He was 15. We were hanging out watching like Don Kirshner's rock concert one Saturday night, right? And he had my brother had 2 big German Shepherds. And all of a sudden, we got this wicked smell that came past the house. I mean, just unbelievable. And the dogs went ballistic. And the property was 3 acres. The front of the house was open with a circular driveway with a fountain. And the side of the house and the back was all fenced in with a 6-foot fence. So we got the dogs. We put them in the garage because they were making so much noise. And the next morning, we told our sister, we told my sister, my brother-in-law at breakfast, something came by last night that stunk to high heaven. The dogs went absolutely crazy. And my brother-in-law said, "Oh, that's the skunk ape. He comes by every year around this time when it gets hot like this, And us guys being from New York, we thought he was pulling our chain. We're like, yeah, skunk ape. What the hell's a skunk ape, And so my sister explains to me it's like the Florida version of Bigfoot. It's like, okay, we all seen the Patty film, right? And so that night we went and we hung out with our crew in the woods, had our bonfire and everything. And I started talking to all the guys, and I was like, "Hey, you guys ever hear of the skunk ape?" And they were all like, "Yeah, it comes around every time, in July when it gets hot like this, it comes around in the swamps and screams and stuff, and it doesn't really, And I was like, "Wow, this is really true." I couldn't believe it was true. Like, "Yeah, it's true." So okay, so the skunk ape exists. So one night we were hanging out. It was my brother-in-law had just come back from the restaurant, and every night when he would close the restaurant, he would always bring us a couple of pizzas, and we'd have like a midnight snack, right? And we were sitting out in the patio, and we're eating the pizzas. My brother-in-law, my sister, and my cousin Anthony. Kids are sleeping in the room. The dogs are out there with us. And a friend of ours whose father had the horse ranch, we heard boom, 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 like a 30-06 going off, Wow. And so we all run to the front of the house, and we could see the shots being fired, towards the swamp. And so my brother said, "Jump on your bikes, go see what happens." So we jump on our dirt bikes and we go race down to see what happened. And we get down there, we see our friend, and we're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "The damn skunk ape tried to kill my father's new horse." His father had just brought a horse in from Wyoming or Montana or something that was like a wild Mustang, and he couldn't keep him in the corral because it would buck and make all the other horses nervous. So I'm in the stable, so he had kept him in the corral, okay? And he had a Native American Seminole come every day to break him, work him. And apparently this skunk ape snuck up on this horse and grabbed it by its hind quarters. And I guess the horse kicked out, jumped the corral, went into the pasture. And by then, the rancher had come out with his gun and just started putting lead downfield, right? He was just shooting her. So the sheriff came by and he says, "Okay, we'll pick up the corral." So the next morning, we went back there to talk to our friend again, and the Native American had come in, and he'd gone out to the field, and he got the horse a pasture and brought him back in. And when he brought him back in, the horse had finger marks, not claw marks, but finger marks on its hind quarters.
Wow.
Like if I was to grab you by the wrist and squeeze really, really hard, and that just blew my mind. I mean, to see these marks, these giant hand marks on the back of this horse. And I was like, wow, that's insane, And then a couple of nights go by, and we're sleeping, and my sister had a sunroom. And we're sleeping in the sunroom on a queen-size pull-out bed that faced the driveway. There's no fence in the driveway, right? We faced the driveway, and we had just gone to bed. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and we're laying there, me and my cousin Anthony, and the sensor lights go on outside. And when the lights go on, we see this giant shadow cross the wall in front of us, right? And the dogs start to go crazy. So I jump out of bed, I drag the dogs into the garage so they don't wake up the whole house. And I do like an army crawl back to the bed. My cousin's frozen. He can't move because he's looking at this giant shadow. And I peek out the window, just out of the corner of the blind to see what's out there. And there's this, only way I could describe it, it looked like King Kong, okay? It had stopped in the middle of the driveway. And it must have seen its reflection in the glass. We had a big picture glass window behind us. And it must have seen its reflection in the glass. And it did this like incredible Hulk kind of thing where I screamed, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I thought it'd seen me. And I was like, oh, man, he's going to come and get me, right? And he started to walk over to the left side of the house, and he was walking around the fence. So I grabbed my cousin Anthony. I said, come on. There was a bathroom in between the two kids' room that were on that side of the house. And there was no house built on the lot next to us. It was an empty lot. There was a lot of wild watermelons in there and stuff. So we run into the bathroom, we kept the lights off. The screen is black. The windows are tinted. We're standing behind the windows looking at, and we see this thing. Because as it's going along the fence line, the sensor lights are going on, lighting it up. We see this thing walking along the fence line, and the whole time it's looking at us like it can see us through the dark, through the window and everything. And we ducked down a couple of times thinking, and we popped back up, and it grabbed the wild watermelon, and in like one bite, it bit like the whole thing, you know? Then it threw it to the floor, and it kept walking along the back of the fence line. So we run out to the patio because the patio was screened, and we left the lights off on the patio, and we run out to the patio. And the back sensor lights go on. And behind our house was a man-made lake when our neighbors had a man-made lake. We actually used to swim in that lake because it was cooler than the pool water. You know, the pool water would get hot, but the man-made lake would stay cool. And the thing squatted down with one hand, again, turned back and looked at us like it could see us, you know, in the dark. And it scooped and started drinking water with one hand. And he got up and it walked into the swamp where we rode our dirt bikes every day. You know what I mean? So we told my sister, my brother, yeah. So we went out and we looked at the tracks, but the tracks were in sand, you know what I mean? So we measured them. I think they were like 18 inches long and like 9 inches wide, something like that. And my brother was like, oh, when I come home from lunch and get some plaster of Paris, we're going to make some casts. I'm going to put them up on the bar, you know? So I was like, okay. He never came home for lunch. And then the whatchamacallit, the horse rancher, he came by with a group to go take riding into the swamp, you know, a tour. And they rode over the tracks and they destroyed the tracks. All right. So, you know, so now we're hanging out and a couple of nights go by and nothing is going down. And every now and then you would hear the skunk ape just go off in the swamp. Just go absolutely screaming to bloody murder, you know? And I didn't realize it at the time, you know, but I was told later on because of the fires in the Everglades, it was driving everything in, and this creature was not happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to the east of us, there was a cattle rancher, okay, and he had this giant Brahma bull, this white Brahma bull with a big ass hump in its neck, right? And I'm telling you, if this thing was 1,500 pounds, it was an ounce. Okay. It was a monster. And I used to jog around this development. It was like 2 square miles. And I used to jog around it every day to stay in shape because I was doing martial arts and all that stuff and working out and all that. And this lady who lived on the development had this giant Saint Bernard. It was like Cujo. Okay. She pulls into the driveway, hits the automatic gate opener. The gate opens up and Cujo comes running out. He's coming after me. So I'm running and Cujo's coming. And the only place to go is in this cattle ranch's pasture. The fence was only 4 foot high. So I dive over the fence so the dog don't get me. And there's this giant bull staring at me like, what are you doing here? Right. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I'm walking along the fence line and I'm using the cows as a protection to get in between the bull and the cows. I worked my way back out. And this guy didn't like us because I'll be honest with you. We used to race around the block on the dirt bikes. And he lived on one of those turns that you had to take it wide. Otherwise, you would have went down on the gravel. And we used to rip up his lawn all the time, every day. Yeah. My brother-in-law was always resodding this guy's property, okay? So he was not a fan of ours. And so anyway, so they got this giant Brahma bull. So one day, my brother-in-law has friends come up from New York. And he's going to take them down to Fort Lauderdale or Miami, whatever, out for night to eat dinner and stuff. So he says, hey, listen, you guys, you know, babysit the kids. Tells us where all the guns are, you know what I mean? There's 45 here, there's, you know, 357 here, there's a Thompson machine gun in the closet, you know. He had all kinds of guns, right? Being a Marine. And
Al,
Yeah.
now, what
Me and
family was
Dexter.
it?
Yeah, I know.
I didn't hear him.
Go ahead, Tex. We were both going to inject at the same time. I think I
Yeah.
know what Tex is about to say. Go ahead, buddy. Yeah. Awesome story.
Sammy
Al,
the
but
bull
yeah.
hanging out with y'all, or
Wow, what's that again? I didn't hear you.
not Sammy the bull hanging out with y'all? What kind of family
not
y'all got?
Sammy the
What kind
Bull,
of family y'all got going down there?
yeah, well, it was one of those kind of families, but no,
And,
Sammy the Bull wasn't there.
and with that being said, too, Al, I mean, as this is all unfolding, this is an awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing this with us all. What's going through your mind, though? Great story. Now, when you're looking at this experience and this, what in your mind, what is going on in your mind? Like, are you like, I can't believe what I'm looking at? What is this? I mean, this is not human, yet it's a monster. I don't know what it is. What are you thinking during this entire encounter?
I'm thinking that me and my cousin came down to Florida to get killed by a fucking monster. That's what I was thinking. It's like, here we are dealing with thugs in the alleyways, in the back alleyways of the Bronx and stuff. You know what I mean? And we can survive that, but we're going to come down here and get killed by a monster. Anyway, they take these people out to dinner one night. Okay. It's a couple of weeks have gone by. The cops are patrolling. The sheriff is patrolling the area more often because of all the action. Because we were right on the Everglades. There was Everglades all around us.
Yeah.
And so they go out to eat. They come back late, 2:00 in the morning. They get out of the car, and my brother-in-law had a beautiful, brand new Lincoln Mark IV or something like that with the sunroof. I mean, it was a smoking car. And they get out and they say, "Is any action tonight?" And we say no because it's been really quiet. No sooner do we say that, we hear a blood-curdling scream. I mean, it just shook everybody to its core. The dogs started going ballistic, right? So as soon as we hear that scream, we hear boom, boom, like a double-barrel shotgun go off over at the cattle rancher's farm, okay? So my brother-in-law says, jump in the car, let's go see what happened, right? So my cousin Anthony takes shotgun. I'm in the back. I'm hanging out of the moonroof, right? And we're driving. As soon as we get to the corner of our block, the deputies passes us. So now we're behind the deputy, and the deputy's driving really slow, right? And you can see the sheriff's car at the far end of the development, like making a turn because it's all flat down in Florida. There's nothing to block here, you know. And so we're behind the deputy, and the deputy is looking to his left towards where the swamp is with the spotlight. He's going real slow. And out from behind, out of the darkness from the right, the creature runs out in front of the deputy's car, and the deputy hits it.
Whoa.
And the car looked like it hit a telephone pole. It just stopped dead, okay? Creature goes down and takes down like a bus stop sign that's supposed to be unbendable, unbreakable because of the high winds they have, the hurricane winds in Florida. Flattens this sign, pancakes it, gets back up. I'm hanging out of the sunroof. My brother-in-law's got the high beams on this thing. We're 5 feet behind the deputy's car. The creature gets back up, walks over to the deputy's car, looks straight into the windshield, screams bloody murder, double-handed, punches the front of the car like hammer fist. Boom. The back of the car comes off the ground. And we're like, oh, shit. Limps off into the swamp. At this point, the sheriff comes around the corner. He comes racing down. He sees the car, looks like it hit a telephone pole. And he's like, what the hell happened? The deputy's telling him what happened. He's like, why didn't you shoot it with your goddamn shotgun? Because back then, they used to carry the shotgun in between the seat. You know what I mean? They had it right here. And he's like, nah, the shotgun wasn't big enough, you know? And so the sheriff is taking our report, I guess, for the insurance, you know, what happened, this, that, and the other thing. We're telling them that. We're telling them what's going on. And the cattle rancher comes racing up and he says, Sheriff, you got to come to my back to my ranch. You got to see what that goddamn creature did to my prize bull. Now I'm thinking, what the hell did this thing do to this bull? Because I seen this bull face to face. It was a monster. It was like a VW bug. You know what I mean? It was big. So the sheriff goes back to the cattle ranches. We follow the sheriff, right? We leave the deputy in the middle of the road. We follow the sheriff. We get there and he's panning the pasture with his spotlight. And there in the middle of the pasture is the bull bleeding out. It's got no head. The creature ripped its head off. Then it took its head.
Whoa.
Then it took its head and it threw it like 100 yards away across the pasture. And you can see the head at one end of the pasture, and this beast just like laying down like on its leg, just bleeding out with no head. So the sheriff says, "Okay, we're gonna have to do something." So my mind is blown because I didn't think anything could kill this bull. It was so big,
Yeah.
And they came back that night. They came back with state police, county police. The sheriffs was there. They had helicopters. They had horses. They had dogs, and they searched to high heaven, and they didn't find anything. Not one thing. Once that thing hit that swamp, it was gone. And then the next day we were really excited because we thought people were going to come and interview us, like all the news reports, because we've been seeing them all summer long. So we're all psyched out. Yeah, we were there. We witnessed it. No one came to knock on our door. We went to the local Winn-Dixie to get like three newspapers. There's nothing mentioned in any of the newspapers. And we're like, I don't understand it. All summer long. All you see is you hearing reports on the radio, on TV. We're reading them in a newspaper. And this is like the biggest thing that happened all summer long. And there's no report of it. And I just couldn't understand why there was no report of it. And, and that was like, so then when the summer was over, we're getting ready to fly back to New York. I can't wait to get back to New York to tell my brother, right? Because he's a parapsychologist. Right. And my cousin Anthony says, "You can't tell anybody." I go, "What do you mean I can't tell anybody?" He goes, "Yeah, I can't tell anybody because if you tell anybody, they're going to think we're assholes. And then if you tell people and people think I'm an asshole, I'm going to kick your ass." And my cousin Anthony was bigger than me. We fought all the time as cousins, and he kicked my ass all the time, and I didn't want to get my ass kicked. So, and my brother used to take a pounding from my family. The way we show our love is by breaking everybody's balls, and my brother, everybody, all my uncles and my cousins always broke my brother's chops. So what are you going to do with that degree? How are you going to make money with that parapsychologist degree and all this stuff? But so I didn't tell my brother for years.
And I was going to interject too. You're a researcher, and by the way, we are new on the radio side of this, so I'm unsure how many edits Tex and I are going to have to put on the show.
Oh, but I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're rookies. We have no idea. Thank you. I love your enthusiasm.
I forgot you guys were on, the other.
You know what?
Other things.
Hey, it didn't dawn on to me until just a minute ago. But I love the story. I love the enthusiasm. Just be who you are. But
I ain't sweating it, Al. You do what you do.
Being a researcher, yeah, me too. I'm saying the same thing.
I'll tone it back.
I just made a joke, but I love it, Al. I love it because we are raw, we are live, and I love it. And I frankly wouldn't take it back. Being a researcher, I'm not a researcher. I claim to be that. I've seen a Bigfoot. It was a terrifying encounter. So we're talking about the skunk ape. Do you think that down south, because of the environment, the humidity, the heat, that they're maybe more aggravated and a little more rambunctious compared to the ones maybe in the north where we live, or even further?
I think they adapt to their environment. You know what I mean? I think they may be a little bit more ornery than the ones up north because of their environment is more ornery. When you have all kinds of snakes and alligators and stuff that can kill you, you have to be ornery to survive that kind of territory.
I'd be in a bad mood just with the heat and the humidity down there.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm not a heat guy. I'm a mountain guy, absolutely. But I always when people ask me how big it was or how much you think it weighed, I always say it had to be 9 feet tall. And the reason I say that is because my sister's fence was 6 feet high, and it was head and shoulders above the fence. And I would say it was every inch of, and I go, this is just one man's opinion, I go 100 pounds per foot. So if it's 9 feet tall, it's minimum of 900 pounds. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's the way I always described it, about 9 foot tall and 1,000 pounds and 900 pounds, something like that.
Well, we kind of did a, I don't want to call it a formula. We kind of did a whole kind of math thing. I kind of had tried to do a math thing and figure out how strong these critters were, or are, or could be.
Yeah.
We can't say how, for sure, but the numbers that I came up with were a 9-foot creature could probably lift 10,000 pounds. So
Wow.
you're talking about a creature that is very capable of doing what you just said it did.
Yeah.
But my God, a 1,500-pound brain. Now I grew up around cattle. That's what I did.
Yeah.
I've had my legs strapped across something that big.
Okay.
And it's, to have something do that kind of damage to a critter like that, because I bulldogged.
Okay.
And the steers that we up to 1,000 pounds is
Wow.
what we would, normally they were about 6 to 7, but every once in a while somebody'd slip in 1,000-pounder on you, and with leverage and everything, twisting one's head around to get him on the ground is one thing. Ripping one off, good God.
Yeah, no, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, the strength of these things never ceases to amaze me, because you're talking about something that can rip a freaking, tree that's a foot in diameter out of the ground, stick it upside down, and stick it up and bury it in the ground again. This is one of the most awesome, and when I say awesome, I mean encounters that I've ever heard. The show of strength of this thing is phenomenal. To leave handprints in the flanks of a horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be confident, for something to be confident enough to, attack animals of that size, because you're talking about a horse weighs over 1,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah.
And I don't know what it had in store for the horse. I've heard stories.
Yeah, I've heard stories too. Yeah,
but God bless that horse if that's what happened.
I think that's why the horse kicked out.
Yeah. But I will tell you this. If that horse landed both feet on that critter, it probably did some damage to him.
Probably knocked him down. Yeah. I was a 12-year-old kid, and nowadays I'll be looking on the ground for where the creature went down, right? Where its butt and its hands and stuff like that. But at 12 years old, when you see something like that, and I tell people this all the time, they said, when you see these creatures, I don't care what creature it is, when you see, your mind can't comprehend what your eyes are seeing. They're just so big and so powerful that you just can't comprehend it. Like, you don't know, like when the first time I told the story and the host asked me, well, what'd you think it was? I said, I thought it was King Kong. It was a monster to me. I called it a monster. It really was. And then to do that flex, like that incredible Hulk flex, that's like, I thought it was coming through the window, No, it was scary. I couldn't sleep for like 2 years, when I went, and that's going back to New York, living in the city, I didn't have, we lived in the city there was no woods. There was woods around us, but there wasn't nothing like, down in the Everglades, and just, I always thought that the creature was going to reach in, because I had a big picture window in my bedroom. My bedroom was basically a front porch, and my father closed it off. He was a carpenter, and he closed it off to make a bedroom. So it wasn't that wide, maybe 6 feet wide. So something that big could reach right through and pull my ass right out the window. I was always sleeping up against the wall as far away from that window as I could. It was petrifying. It was crazy.
And Al, and I hate to always recant. You're one of the first guys that I've interviewed, or Tex and I have interviewed in a long time, where I'm loving your story, because most of the times you hear about the Bigfoot encounters that aren't very scary or petrifying. I'm not getting into my encounter. We'll talk later. I had a very terrible. You had made mention. I asked you a question. What was going through your mind? And you said it reminded me of a monster and it wanted to kill us. 4 years ago, I had an encounter. This thing, I saw it. It vocalized at me. It yelled, screamed, howled all in unison. It transformed from a Down syndrome looking person into like what I explain as a demon. It
Wow.
sent out energy, knocked my girl off the boat. I was traumatized for a long time. It's just refreshing to know that I'm not the only one who's had a bad encounter. Nothing
Well, you
against
know,
Bigfoot. And man, thank you for that because I appreciate the story, my friend.
one thing we we haven't talked about, we haven't even mentioned really,
Yeah.
is the damn deputy. When the sheriff walks up and says, "Why didn't you shoot it?" He was probably too busy crapping his pants.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Gary Spikes Jr. had an encounter that was, he woke up, he was camping in his truck. He woke up and one was, looking at him in the window, and the shoulders went from the windshield to the back of the cab, and it just, he evacuated everything. It was literally an underwear changing moment for him. And he, and he hauled ass out. I can only imagine this thing, right in your window, screaming at you, slamming on your car, good grief.
Yeah,
and
no.
And to think how the car reacted when he hit it. There's a report that comes out of up around Rio Dosa, a little town called Cloudcroft, that highway department. I heard from a guy that was best friends with the guy that happened, that responded to the incident. And long story short, there was a couple of cars coming around a curve. They sideswiped each other. When they pulled over and got out to see if everybody was okay, Bigfoot ran out of the trees, screamed at him, slammed his fist down on the hood of the car, and then ran back into the trees. Well, everybody jumped in their cars, locked the doors. When the highway department got there, it took them, 30 minutes to, these people were scared to death. It took them 30 minutes to coax them out of the cars.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it was, I've had a lot of sightings over the years, even lucky enough to see a white one, and
wow.
I have a couple of hot spots up here in New York that I go to and I do research, and I have a good rapport with these creatures, and we've never had a bad encounter,
Right.
So I'm very lucky with the ones I'm dealing with here. But when I put that experience out, the guy who ran the Florida Skunk Ape Museum reached out to me. He wanted to put it in his museum, that story. And I was like, absolutely, this woman, Ree Meredith, she's from Florida. She works for the BFRO. She actually she took the story from there and she actually did the research behind it. And because she was a kid like me in South Florida, she lived in the next town over, and her uncle was a cop on the next town to our south. So she was hearing all of this stuff at the same time I was experiencing it, and her father had like a boat shop in Davie or something like that, a mechanic shop. So she put all this research together, and I don't have the number of the case number for it, but on the BFRO, I'll give you the case number. You go and look it up. She's got all kinds of stuff from that summer that happened down in Florida, all the Bigfoot reports, all the skunk ape reports. She went above and beyond the call of duty to put this a report together, and it's mind-boggling all the stuff she found just from like South Florida in 1974. It seemed to be a hot spot, and it's just mind-boggling. She did a great job, and then she hooked me up with this sketch artist, Erna Seville, something like that, and she was from Texas, and she actually drew what I seen. Only thing she did is she made it like black, and then they posted it. The one I seen had like a red tint to it,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It had like a red sheen or shine to the hair. It wasn't all black and it wasn't brown. It just had some red. I call it highlights. I don't know what that is, but
You know,
yeah.
and I was going to ask you too, Al. We got 6 minutes before we have to say goodbye to our radio audience, but
Wow.
I want to ask you a quick question. But the show will continue on. I had a question. I hear a lot of stories and a lot of people, Tex and I have spoken with, that have done research in South Florida. You know, we talk about the color. Mine was a reddish brown. A lot of people are black. You had the white sighting. In Florida, do you find that because of the element down there with the plush green, you know, you got the swamps. Have you experienced anything that's maybe camouflaged as a green or a match and blends in right with the Everglades or what have you? Do you think that there's a difference between the environments with the colors of these things?
I don't know if they're chameleon like, you know what I mean? I honestly don't know. I think if you've seen the Mark Zasky film where he
Right.
shows the hairs are white and it just turned colors. You put a green leaf behind it, the hair turns green. You put a brown leaf behind it. I think, you know, that's probably more of the reality of it than them actually changing colors and stuff. But
Right.
you know, I'm on the camp that when it's here in front of us, it's flesh and blood and it can be killed, you know, and I'm sure plenty of people have killed them. I know the Native Americans have had wars with them, and I'm sure the government has hit squads that go out for nuisance animals as well. But I'm on that camp where I also believe that, you know, they're supernatural. I spoke to enough Native Americans over the years at different kind of powwows from Florida to upstate New York, and they all claim that these creatures are supernatural, you know, and who knows them better than them? They've been here forever, you know.
And,
So
and that's something I would like to get into at the end of the 3 minutes we got left, because that's something we can really dive deep into. We're going to have to cut this for our radio side here in about 2 minutes. And for the people on the radio, Odyssey Radio and iHeart Radio, Al, why don't you, before we move on, we can go to YouTube, go to Texas Front Porch on YouTube, hit subscribe. You can pick up the rest of the show, or you can go brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob as well and hook that up. But Al, the next 2 minutes, what do you think, before we end this out, where you can tell people on the radio side where they can find you to check you out?
well, you know, you can find us, the Bronxville Paranormal Society is on the web. We have our own website. You can find us on YouTube, any social media page. Brian's got us on everything under the sun. So, you know, you can find me personally on Facebook, Messenger, if you got a question. I have people contact me all the time and ask questions or want to see a picture of this or that, and I send them stuff, and you know, they say, "Oh wow, I thought you were bullshitting, but I guess you're not," you know. And
Right.
so you could reach out to me, but you can find us on all social media sites: New York State UFO Project, New York State Sasquatch Organization, the Bronxville Paranormal Society, and the New York American Dogman Project, New York State chapter.
You know, when on the second part of the show, what I want to get into, and folks, if you're listening and you want to catch this, because I think it's going to be interesting as hell. You said you didn't tell your brother for years, and he was actually a parapsychologist. I want to get into his reaction when you finally told him after we come back from the break.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because that perspective fascinates me, you know, and this whole encounter just blows my mind, honestly. I mean,
It does, man. It does.
And there's a little bit more to it there's a little bit more to it, but you know, I know we don't have the time to get into it. So,
well, no, we got the time today to get into it. All we're saying is we can go on as long as you like. And we've got about 40 seconds. Everybody listening on the radio side, subscribe to Texas Front Porch to pick this up in its entirety. You can also go to Bigfoot Michigan Rob and pick it up in its entirety. It does not matter. We're universal. This is a great show. El Santariga. Welcome to the show, buddy. And we'll be back with our YouTube crowd.
Yeah, we're going to take a little 5-minute break. And when we get back, guys, I'm telling you, if you're listening and you're not going to want to miss this, because we're going to dig a little deeper into this, and we may be talking some dogman. I can't. It's hard for me to let a cryptid investigator go without
You
talking some
can't.
dogman.
Yes, absolutely, Tex. I knew that. And we've been talking Bigfoot and Al. He's had UFO encounters. He's had paranormal.
Yeah.
This man, I hate to say it once again, but we're gonna have to do a part 2. But that'll be later on in the month.
And
Yeah,
ask any questions you want. I'm open to anything, you know.
Yeah,
Like
that's
as
awesome,
far as
man.
the people in the chat room and stuff like that, if they got the question, I'm open to anything.
Very
All right,
good.
guys, y'all in chat and listening live, man, on YouTube. Don't run off. We're going to be back after a 5-minute break.
All right.
Y'all over at iHeart, God bless y'all. Odyssey Radio, great folks, man, great folks.
Yep.
Ron and Rocky, y'all rock, man. We'll be back. Don't go nowhere. Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. 1 minute. 1 minute. And we're back. Hey, folks.
Hello.
Well, hello, everybody. Don't everybody talk at once here.
I know that's how, it's the first week we've been doing this, going back and forth with the radio cuts and everything. So we'll smooth it out. We'll smooth it out. It's a great thing. We're glad to be with Odyssey Radio, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Al, for joining us. Thank you, Tex, for picking up the co-pilot's positioning today. And Tex, you had a great comment and what you asked Al about earlier. Why don't you continue on with that, and let's continue on.
Yeah, man, on the heels of this awesome freaking encounter.
Sound.
Oh, crap.
I have no sound.
He can't hear us.
Uh-oh. Best thing I can say is log in and log out real quick. I mean, you run it for a couple minutes.
Yeah. I'm hitting him up on private chat, so
Okay.
Can't hear anybody.
hopefully he'll read it.
Yeah, I'll send him a quick message as well.
Yes.
Yep. There you go.
There he goes.
All right.
But yeah, this encounter, I mean, it was awesome in itself. And it's okay. We just lost Al. He's going to log out and come back in. But, you know, his brother being a parapsychologist, one, I want to learn more about being a parapsychologist. I got a real think it'd be cool to have his brother on, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But his take on this situation is going to be an interesting perspective for sure.
Yeah, I think so. You know, you can tell that he's full of all sorts of different experiences. I mean, we did 1 hour segment just talking about that encounter, and I'm sure he has a lot more to elaborate on, which we'll get into when he gets back. And I just want to give quick shout outs to everybody in chat. I don't type that much in chat, you guys, because the way my setup is. But hi to Sharon, Gary Spike Sr., Sandra Piper, Sharon, Gene Hudson. I see Duke Sullivan was in there. Michael Tester, yes, I know where White Lake, Michigan is. We got to hook up. I love that area. Strangeland. A whole host of our fabulous YouTube listeners. Titan, good to see Titan in there. Haven't seen you in a while, buddy. The Huntress. And I can hear Al.
I can hear you guys now. I don't know what happened. I lost sound.
Hey, that's no big deal.
All
it's
right,
live radio, live TV, whatever you want to call it.
I don't know how to do everything all over again. Yeah. So to just finish up that story about the South Florida thing, when after everybody left, all the police and everybody left, I had a friend of mine who lived behind us. He was I call him, he was like a real rebel. You know what I mean? One of those kids, never had a shirt on, never had shoes on, ran up and down the woods with no shoes. He said to me, you know what, Al, I think these creatures live in caverns in the swamp. Now, where we hung out in that back where we rode our dirt bikes and had the bonfires, the canal came back there, you know, it flowed back there. And the local kids called it the turnaround. The water would come in, turn around and go back out. And we would fish there, and there was all kinds of animals there, you know, fish and frogs and turtles and all kinds of stuff. And they were always after me and my cousin to go swimming with them. I was like, I'm going in those canals, man. There's alligators in those canals, you know? And they're like, no, the alligators don't come down here. They don't come to the turnaround. I'm like, oh, you're out of your mind. They're all over the place down here, you know? They're even in the man-made lake that was behind our house one time. We got a dog in there, you know? And so anyway, me and my cousin were down there fishing one afternoon. There was nobody around. And we seen an alligator sunning himself floating on top of the water. And I hand to God, this thing, when it got into the turnaround and it seen where it was, it literally ran on the top of the water, get out of there. It was scared to death to be in that turnaround. And my cousin and I just looked at each other like, what the hell was that, right?
Right.
And so this local kid, and he said to me, he believes that these creatures have caverns in the cattails, you know, off the side of the green. And he said that's why once they get to the canals, nobody could ever find them. They go into the caverns and they're safe. So he said to me one day, he says, I'm gonna check in the turnaround around behind the cattails for a cavern. He said, and he goes, you know, just hang out in case I find something. And I was on my dirt bike that day, and he was like, okay. So he's diving through the cattails, swimming under the water, and then he pops up at the far end of the turnaround. He says, I found a cavern. I found something. I'm going to go in. Give me 3 minutes. If I'm not back in 3 minutes, go to the house and get my brother, because he had like 3 brothers. You know, they were all crazy guys. So I said, all right. So I'm waiting. 3 minutes go by, and I start up the bike, and I'm getting ready to go. And he pops back out, and he comes racing over to me, running over to me, and he smells horrible, okay? And his eyes are burning, his tears, and he's like bouncing off the wall. And he's like, dude, I found the lair. He said, I swam down this cavern. I popped up underground. It was like an underground water, like a little lake or whatever. He said, and there was like caves all around. He said, and I think they're living in those caves off of this underground cavern. And I was like, dude, you're out of your mind. You know, he goes, he wanted me to go with him to have a witness, you know? I was like, God, no, I'm not going in there. Are you out of your mind? I said, just think about what your father would do if he came home one night and found a stranger in his house. He'll shoot him dead right there in the middle of the floor. You know what I mean? I said, these things are going to rip you apart if they find you in there. Don't go in there. I said, so then, you know, but I believed him. And I'll tell you why I believed him, because he stunk to high heaven, and yet his eyes were burning, and he was bouncing off the wall. He wasn't that good an actor to fake it. You know what I mean? And he says to me, he says, Al, you got to promise me you don't ever tell anybody about it, because if the police find out, they're going to come down here and they're going to demolish this whole area, cave these things in, kill all these creatures, and and we won't have a place to go dirtback riding or horseback riding and stuff like that. I said, listen, your secret is safe with me. You know what I mean? And
right, for sure.
So then we left to come back to New York, and a week later, my sister called me, and she's like, Ralph. Now, our friend of ours, Ralph, he had stables on the other side of the pond, and he had a pony in the stables. And he said the creature came back out one night and killed the pony, broke the pony's neck, and was dragging the pony out of the corral. And Ralph seen it and started shooting at it and everything. And I don't know if Ralph hit it or whatever, but Ralph got a posse together. My brother-in-law was on the posse, and they rode out and they tracked the blood trail all the way to the water. It had dropped the pony once it got hit, but it tracked it. Actually, they had a bloody footprint on a piece of wood that it stepped on, and they tracked it back to the water. But once it got into the canal, it was gone again, and I was like, man, I'm so glad I'm out of there. You know what I mean? I'll deal with the muggers and the thieves and the killers in the city any day over these creatures, And that just wraps that story up.
So how long did it go before you told your brother?
Well, my brother, man, God, I don't know how many years ago it was now. My brother ended up writing a book called Frank R. Santariga, Paranormal Family and Friends. And he calls me up and he says, "Hey, I know you've been doing all these investigations and stuff. You got any interesting stuff you could lend me, for the book?" So I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I got, what do you want? What do you want?" And he says, "Well, give me something, because my brother is very anal when it comes to getting stories. He's got to make sure there's no bullshit involved and that everything is copacetic, just exactly the way you say it." So I told him that story and he put it in his book and he went back. At this point, my cousin Anthony had passed and my brother-in-law had passed, but my sister was still alive. So he went back and he checked with her and she's like, "Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember that summer. It was insane, And then any other stories, experiences I've had, he went and double checked and made sure like there were witnesses and stuff to make sure everything was valid, to validate the experience, because he didn't want to put anything in his book that he couldn't validate, Right. And so I would say, God, 2015, was when I actually told my brother about it. Because I just, life goes on and, and even though you experience stuff, you push it to the back of your mind, girls come and go and, you're young, you're partying, you're doing all kinds of stuff. And you kind of just put that stuff on the back burner,
So what was his reaction when you told him?
He couldn't believe me. He thought it was full of shit, and that's like, listen, you don't have to
being a
me.
parapsychologist, really?
He was like, yeah, really. And I was like, look, you don't have to believe me, call your sister down in Florida. She'll tell you, And then when my sister validated, I think he put more credence into her word than mine, But she's like, yeah, yeah, because she, again, all these years have gone by. You talk about 1974, and 2015, 40 years have gone by. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah, that was a crazy summer. Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." And then he called me back and he says, "Okay, he's sis validated your story, so I'll use it." I was like, "Okay, cool. Do whatever, But he always knew, like my brother, as much as a researcher as he was and a parapsychologist he is, he never really had any experiences. He had, I think, one summer my family had gone to Italy on vacation. I probably wasn't even born at the time, and he was biking across the Alps, with a bunch of friends from the town, and he seen the UFO. It was the only UFO he ever seen in his life, And yeah, he's got some EVPs working with, like Hans Holzer's partner and stuff like that. He hasn't experienced a lot of paranormal stuff. He's not like me, my sister, or my mother. You know what I mean? He just doesn't, for some reason, it just doesn't come to him like it does to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. It's like you said, it doesn't speak to everybody. First, I don't know what the correlation is.
Yeah.
Correlation.
Yeah.
Correlation, whatever
Correlation.
it is. But it seems that a lot of times, man, somebody that has one experience, especially with Sasquatch, tend to have more.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just I've been thinking about it, and a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they show themselves to certain people." I'm not so sure that's it. I think you have that one chance encounter, and I think you're more open to what you're looking for. I think you can notice it more, and I think that may be, what's happening. Not just your specific. I cannot talk today. Specifically chosen.
It's okay, Tech.
By these entities. Well, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, that type thing. But the paranormal side of it, I do think that's a chosen thing. But I think it's just that we're, when you see these creatures, you just know what you're looking for. And I think it kind of puts you on high alert anyway. because you're like, oh crap, these things are out here, you know. But
Yeah, no,
don't
I
know.
think it's a combination of both, Tex, to be honest with you. I think it's all about your intent and your energy. And I think just one man's opinion, don't kill me for this, but I think they see our auras and they know right away if you have a good intent or you have bad intent. And I'm not saying they show themselves to everybody, but they may tolerate different people differently. You know, I know a lot of people think, threw rocks at me, they were mad at me.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. You know, we get
Yeah,
hurt every time they're done with us. They let us know, and then they hurt us out of the woods. They hurt us out. You know what I mean? And they, you know, and when we get to a certain point, they turn around and they go back to where the sacred site is to hunt or whatever they do. You know, we don't push it. But I think it's a combination of everything. Like, you know, like people always say, oh, why you, Al? Why do you have all these experiences? You know, and I was like, well, is it something to do with the bloodline? I don't know. I mean, we trace our family bloodline back to the Roman Empire. You know what I mean? My last name translated means holy line. I don't know if that means anything, right? We did a show for the Travel Channel last fall on UFOs. They took my blood on screen, you know, and it was HR negative. I don't know if all of these things have anything to do with it or if it's just who I am. I don't know if it's all a combination of everything.
yeah. They took my blood too. It turned out to be HR puffing stuff.
Yeah. You know,
I hope people know what that is because that's a whole one.
I like to steer this in a little different direction, but I like to also
Anywhere you want to go.
Question from our audience. There's a question for our audience I'd like to answer for one of our good members. I'm going to pull it up here. It'll come up here in a second. Did it come up, Tex?
I didn't see it.
Show.
Oh, there you
There
go.
it is.
Click on. There it is. That's from Titan. Titan asks, Tex Rob, does Al suspect that the caverns are still there, and would he go back if so?
To answer the question, Titan, no, they are not. Not that I know of, because I've seen recent Google Earth photos of the development, what's called Sunshine Acres in Davie, Florida, and everything that was swamp or pasture is gone now, and it's just all homes. Like the ranch is gone, the cattle ranch is gone, the horse ranch is gone, the swamp has been drained, and they built more homes back there now. So I would imagine when they built those homes and they made the foundations, they probably caved those caverns in, you know. But
do you think that because you were saying that summer there was just just a whole lot of encounters and sightings in that area, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it was maybe this one rogue creature doing all that?
No, because it was all over South Florida. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think it had to do with the fire. See, there was a drought that summer, and because of the drought, there was a lot of fires in the Everglades, and it was just driving everything inland. And I think that's, as ornery as these creatures are, because of the heat, the humidity, and the elements where they live, the fire just really pushed them over the edge, because now they can't even go back to their homes. You know what I mean? Because of the fire, and they have to deal with people, and I'm sure they don't want to deal with people.
Now, we just had a question pop up, and I got to know about this. It says, Anastasia says, can you tell the story about the grasshopper type creature you saw in New York?
Oh, she's talking about the green goblin creature. Oh, yeah. The only way I can describe it is if you ever seen the Spider-Man show with William Dafoe, where he was the Green Goblin. Okay. Now I told my brother this story, and he said, "Don't call it the Green Goblin. People are going to think you're an idiot." You know what I mean? He ended up telling me that it was more of an insectoid kind of creature. But I was actually working at the post office, and the north end of Yonkers gets very wooded, and there's not a bridle path. There's a reservoir that runs underneath the back, comes from the Catskill mountain range down to the city. So there's an aqueduct back there, and all these high-end apartment buildings along the Hudson River, really, really high-end, really nice. I was holding that route down one summer, and I was parking at one end of the route. And when I finished at the farthest north end, I would walk the aqueduct back to my car. It was a shortcut instead of walking all the way around the block, right? And one day I'm walking down the aqueduct, and I get the feeling that something is following me, and I keep turning around, looking around, and I don't see anything. And I just feel like something is fucking following me. And I keep going and I keep going. And then I start noticing that, and I never noticed it the whole summer. I never noticed it. But all the houses that were built in between the buildings, they all had like 10-foot fences that faced the aqueduct. And they all had like these killer dogs, Doberman Pinschers, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, and Pit Bulls, all big, guard dog kind of things. And I'm like, what's going on with this place? So at one point I was getting real close to the car, and I just felt like this thing was, whatever it was like right behind me. So I grabbed both of my cans of my pepper spray that I keep 2 cans on the bag, and I ran over to a bunch of bushes where I felt this thing was hiding, and I sprayed those bushes down and I turned them red just to see if I could see any, because I'm thinking maybe it's something like the Predator, right? That can go into that thing and you can't see it unless you turn it a different color. And again, I didn't see anything, nothing, the leaves, nothing, there was nothing there. I get in the car, I go, and then I started noticing as time went on, the fall came, the kids were going back to school and stuff, and I'm delivering the mail in the buildings. And the way these 2 buildings that were set up that faced the woods, that were faced the aqueduct, there was a breezeway that attached both of them. And on the roofs, they had pools. Both buildings had pools, really high end, right? And I started noticing that the kids, when we got off, you had to go like to the second floor to get the elevator and then go, because the mailboxes were on that breezeway. And I started noticing the kids coming out of the elevators, turning and running to these apartments. They weren't even like fooling around, joking around, this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, wow, what's that all about? And then I started noticing the women, whenever coming home from school, work, started doing the same thing. They wouldn't even go check the mail. They would just run to their apartment. So I was like, okay, something is going on here. So one day I'm delivering the mail, and I feel like something is watching me again. So I turn around and I walk over to the glass breezeway, and I'm looking down into the courtyard. They got a beautiful courtyard with picnic benches and like a retaining wall. It's like 8 feet high. And I'm looking down and there on the aqueduct, it's an opening, and I'm looking down at it, and I know there's something there, but I can't see it. So I say in my head, I know you're there. I could feel you, And I said, if you're there, give me a sign. And it flashed 2 yellow eyes.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Still didn't know what it looked like. But so now I start talking to the maintenance guys around the apartments. And I'm talking to one of the Spanish guys. And he said, he called it a chupacabra. That's what he called it. He said, oh, the chupacabra lives in the woods. Chupacabra. I didn't know what a chupacabra was at the time. I was like, so I started talking to my Puerto Rican friends. And I was like, they told me what it was. So he said he was up on a roof one morning, checking the chemicals in the pool. He said something invisible got out of the pool at the other end, walked to the edge of the building, and we're talking about a 10-story building or something like that. And he said either climbed down the side of the building or jumped to the aqueduct from the top of the building. And he said when eventually he seen it, and it looked like it, he called it a chupacabra. Okay. So I'm working there. So one day again, I get to this building, and again, I feel like it's watching me. And this time I notice that there's a chair, like a lawn chair on the aqueduct facing the buildings, like somebody sitting in the chair looking at the building. So I start talking to the maintenance guys, and he's like, yeah, we had to change all the doors on the buildings from wood to steel on the back, the sliding glass, because something was trying to claw through the wooden doors, to the patios. And
Wow.
they would find patio furniture on the aqueduct, like something was sitting there looking at the building, like trying to figure out how to get in, you know? So then one day, I'm delivering mail. I'm down at the south end of the route where all the houses are, and I'm talking to. There was this one older black woman. We called her Big Mama. She ran like a halfway house, and I was talking to Big Mama, and I said, "Hey, Big Mama," I helped her with her groceries. Because she had like 20 steps you had to get from the sidewalk to the, and I helped her with her groceries. And I said, "Hey, Big Mama, can I ask you a question?" I said, "What's the deal with the 10-foot fence and the pit bull, you know?" And she said, "Let me tell you a story." So she goes on and tells me a story that one night, before she had the big fence, she had like a 4-foot fence there, right? She said one night, all the girls went to bed. They were in bed. Something jumped over the fence and started clawing through the back door because the back door was wood. The dog heard it, went downstairs to protect the house, and started fighting with this thing. Through all the commotion, someone called the cops, and girls ran downstairs, and they seen what looked like claws coming through the door, ripping the dog up, while the dog was fighting with these hands, and they were hitting it with mops and everything, broom handles and stuff, right, trying to get it off the dog. And the dog, eventually the cops got there. The thing ran off into the woods. They saved the dog. Long story short, they saved the dog. Well, down at the very, very first house on the route was an ex-football player. He used to be a tight end for the Jets, right? And I used to talk shop with him all the time, right? So one day I was saying, "Hey, John, whatever his name was, you ever see anything strange in your backyard? Everybody's got these big fences and steel doors, And he says, "Al, let me tell you a story." He says, "When we first moved into the neighborhood, we had like a little 4-foot fence in the backyard. I didn't have a dog or anything. And he got up in the middle of the night one night to go take a piss. And which his bathroom overlooked the backyard. He said it was a beautiful full moon night. He seen what he thought was a person hop over the fence and try to get to his back door. So he grabbed the baseball, went downstairs to let the guy in, And he said he opened the door, and he said he swung the door open real quick. And to his surprise, there was like a creature standing there. And when he raised the bat up to hit it, the thing took off. He said, "Man, it was fast as lightning." He said, "From that day on, I put a steel door up, and he got like I think a dogman pincher or something like that, right?" I was like, okay. So I'm hearing all these stories, and I'm putting all the stuff together. Eventually, it's in the fall, towards getting it's getting dark early now, like 4:00. It's pitch black, right? And I still got half the route to go, so I got to deliver this stuff in the dark, right? So I started using my car, driving the building to building. Well, the last building is a co-op, and it's built like a horseshoe, and with a pool in the middle. And the last house is a rear delivery. So I get to the last house, and I see, and again, I feel like something is following me. And I go there, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to confront this." And I go towards it. Whatever it was, I didn't get it. The following day, I'm back in the big building up on the breezeway delivering mail. I get that feeling again. I said, okay. So I said, "You know what?" I said, "I know you're there." I said, I'll be right down. Don't go anywhere." So I went down, and I went into the courtyard, and I said, "I got to make myself bigger because I'm 8 feet down and this thing is standing above me." So I jumped up on one of the picnic tables to make myself a little taller. And all I had was like a pocket knife and a can of pepper spray, right? And I said, "I know you're here. Why don't you show me what you are?" Something to that effect. I was talking in my head. I wasn't even talking out loud. And the thing materialized in front of me, and it looked like the Green Goblin from the Spider-Man movie. You know what I mean? And I was like, holy crap, like what the hell is that? Like I couldn't believe it. And so it looked at me, and I looked at it, and we looked at each other, and it was checking me out, and I was checking him out. And then I said, "Yeah, all of a sudden I got a bad vibe. Like this dude is about to jump down off this wall, And I said, I should get probably back out of here. So I backed out of there. And then one day I was started at the south end of the route, and there was a building on the south end of the route. And there was this beautiful girl who lived on the first floor. And her parents lived on the north end of the building. She lived on the south end of the building. and his father was a judge, and I talked to her all the time, right? She was a lawyer or something, and she worked in the city. She said one night we're talking. She said, "Oh, she's all of a sudden one day she comes in with this giant German Shepherd that wanted to rip my throat out, right?" So I said to her, I said, "Laura, what the hell is going on? Where did this dog come from?" She goes, "Oh, how to get a dog?" And I said, like, "Why?" She goes, "Let me tell you a story." She said one night she had a park in front of the aqueduct, right? There was a spot there. She came home from the city late. She was partying with her girlfriend. She's a young chick, and she said, when she got out of the car, something started running towards her out of the darkness from the aqueduct. She said when she seen it, she didn't know what the hell it was. And she ran to her building and it ran towards her. And her building has like a foyer and then the main entrance, She ran through the first door, held the door closed with one hand while she was opening the other door, the glass door. While she was holding the first door closed, which was wooden, this thing started clawing its way through. She gets behind the glass door. The thing comes into the foyer and starts clawing at the glass, but it's not doing anything to the glass. She runs around to her apartment. She calls her father. This thing must have scented her. He ran around to her window, which faced the aqueduct, and started clawing through the window. But those windows on that side had gates on them, so he couldn't get through. The father comes down. New York is impossible to get a handgun carry license. Okay, it's just impossible. I mean, if I was one of the lucky ones, I got one. But the father, being a judge, he had no problem getting a carry permit. He comes down. She says, "What's wrong?" She tells him. He runs around the side of the building and sees this creature clawing at her daughter's windows, and he just opens fire. Boom, 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 and the cops come, you know who he is because he's a judge and everything, and yada, yada, yada. They take the report, and the cops say, "Well, listen, judge, we're just going to say it was an intruder trying to break in. We're not going to
Yeah.
I'm not putting down what you," and they said the same thing to all the other people who call, like, to the football player and to Big Mama. When they wrote out the report, they wrote it out as just a trespasser or an intruder. They didn't write it out that it was a creature,
Yeah.
And the vibe I got from it, seeing it face to face, and it was only about 6 feet tall. It wasn't like I'm 5'11", so we're the same height. And the vibe I got from it was that it was a cave dweller, and it lived in those woods in a cave, and it came out. I don't know when it came out or what it came out for. When it was just living there, and everybody. I also noticed that a lot of people who lived in these high-end buildings that face the aqueduct wouldn't stay there very long. 1 year lease and they were gone, But the people who lived across the street would stay there forever. They never seen it. So I don't know what it was doing there. I don't know where it lived. I don't know if it lived in those woods or what, but it was crazy. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to see, and to see something like that you can't even comprehend what it is. It's not even like the Bigfoot that looks like a gorilla or something. It's something totally else.
Al, that's great stories. Everybody, if you're joining late, I noticed a lot of people joining a little late. You've got to watch this show again from the beginning. I give an epic introduction of Al Santariga for one, but even more importantly, Al's stories are phenomenal. And Al, I can't let you go until I get this opinion. We're talking Bigfoot. Now, first of all, I'd like to know if you've had a UFO or alien encounter, but even more importantly, if so, do you think there's a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs or aliens?
Yes to the first question, and don't know necessarily if the cryptids are connected to the aliens, but I believe that they are all interdimensional. And I think, for years, I always thought everything was separate, the ghost hunting, the UFOs, and the Bigfoots. But the longer you're in this and the more you investigate it, you realize that there's a common denominator. There is a common denominator to all these things. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're ghost hunting, squatching, or CE5, you're trying to make contact with something, right? So it's all about frequency, vibration, consciousness, and intent. I like to put intent in there as well. Those are the things I say. I know a lot of people now recently have gone to taking meters out into the woods with them when they go squatching and stuff. I've been doing that from day one because I was a ghost hunter originally. Let me just put it this way. The kind of stuff I got 25 pieces of equipment I take out with me. And on those 25 pieces out of 24 of them, I have 210 different environmental readings I do. Okay. And I have one piece that has 25,000 different readings. Okay. So when I go out and I do I put all these readings together, sometimes I go out to try to duplicate the data I get the first time. Okay. And sometimes I go out to try not to duplicate it and try see what else I get. And there's certain days and times, and I can't get into every single thing I do because there's just so much involved with it. I mean, there's so many different aspects of the research that I do, the data. I mean, I got a black book this thick with all kinds of data and all different kinds of highlighters on all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm still trying to put it together, but it's I was telling, Chris Reinhardt from Bigfoot, okay, Berkshire Brown, Bigfoot.
Show.
Yeah, right. So I was on his show last night, and what I was telling him was he doesn't want anything to do with the paranormal. He just wants a Squatch. And I told him, Chris, you have no choice in the matter because the paranormal is throughout the whole universe. And when you take it from tree knocks and whoops and stuff like that, and you start incorporating all this environmental data and meters and EMF meters and RF meters, the supernatural it's going to take you down that road. You know what I mean? All of this data, it's all part of the big puzzle. So I think, yes, they are connected, but through different kind of environmental data. You know what I mean? I don't think when you see a ball of light, it's a UFO, and then you see a Bigfoot, the Bigfoot, just got out of the ball of light. You know what I mean? Or a UFO, and then you see, maybe that UFO was dropping that Bigfoot off like it drops a human off after they study it. I don't know. But I think it's all connected. I think everything we do, from ghost hunting to UFOs to Bigfoot, it's all connected.
You know what, Al? I couldn't agree more, because when we're out in the field, we run into so much crazy stuff that we just can't explain.
Can't explain it.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit of Dogman with you, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get to. We're going to have to do that on the part 2.
Okay, absolutely, without a doubt.
But because unfortunately, I'm going to have to go.
Okay.
So, I mean, y'all can continue on, but if you want.
Tex, you know what? We won't continue on out of respect to you because Tex loves Dogman, and I'm not doing it without my partner. We'll have to schedule a part 2 because, hey, Tex loves his Dogman, and so do I, and I'm not doing it without him. Everybody in chat, thanks for coming in. Santariga, I'm going to have the sangria in another half hour. Everybody, we're on Odyssey Radio. We're on iHeartRadio. What can we find you again for our people listening in chat and on Yahoo or whatever?
You could find me on Facebook. You could find the New York State UFO Project, the North American Dogman Project, New York State chapter, the New York State Sasquatch organization, and the Bronxville Paranormal Society, all on social media, on every social media out there. My partner Brian's got us on everything. But I usually just stick with Facebook because there's just too many social media sites for me. I'm not a tech guy, and I try to keep it simple. And if anybody's got any personal questions, they could private message me in Messenger, and I'll answer anything you have or whatever,
Very good, Al.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone in chat. And brief recap. Texas Front Porch. We have 4 shows. Mondays, Texas Front Porch at 6:30 Central. Wednesday, Jason Mclean questions everything, 9 Central. Thursdays, once again, brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, noon Central. Friday, we introduce Jessica Jones, RVI, remote viewing investigations with Jessica Jones. Tomorrow, 8 Central, we discussed the Dyatlov Pass. It's going to be outstanding. I can't wait. It's going to be fabulous. You're all fabulous. We love you. Until next time, Bigfoot Michigan Rob in text, along with El Santariga. We're out. If you can find them.